Basically, in a few weeks, I'll make an announcement. We got one more class in this master class, but after that, I'll give myself a week or two off, and then I'll just launch another master class. And when I launch that one, you can come to that one too. And if you are enrolled, if you're already enrolled and signed up for the master class online, then you'll be able to get notifications when we are going to have class meetings, and you can join the class along with the other students. So before we get started, I want to say, let's see, Harold's in Louisiana, Valerie's in Huntsville, Alabama. Oh, wow, that's really cool. That's really great. I know Huntsville is such a smart city. There's so many smart people in Huntsville. That's one thing I remember about Huntsville, was that it seemed like you guys had a lot of engineers and technical people and military people. And I respect military people a lot because, they keep our country safe. And you're really going to be hard pressed to see me ever disrespect a soldier, just because even if I don't agree with the war, don't agree with the politics, I certainly will always agree with supporting the troops. In fact, if they ever made a law that said that every veteran should make $100,000 a year for life, I would vote for that law in a second. Every veteran, every teacher. That just tells you a little bit about my politics. Now, let me talk to you about something that I wanted to get you guys started with. Let me see if I can pull this up. I want to share this article with you so you can kind of look at this. There's this guy that plays for the Golden State Warriors, a really good basketball team. His name is Draymond Green, and there he is. There's Draymond. He's a smart guy, but he's kind of a prick, and he's a good basketball player. And and his team, they usually win. And Draymond was actually in CNBC Making It. And one of the things that Draymond talked about is his plan to be a billionaire. And I found it really fascinating to read up on his plan. He actually has a 3-step action plan to become a billionaire. And I thought that there were some really good insights in this plan in terms of, what it takes to actually become a billionaire. So in this article, I'll just give you the quick overview of his plan. Now, he makes a lot more money than the rest of us, right? So his plan to become a billionaire, you might translate that into your plan to become a millionaire. So, right? So the same way he makes, 82 million over the next 5 years, if you lop off 3 zeros and you say 82,000 over the next 5 years, most of us make more than $82,000, or excuse me, 82,000 divided by 5, which I guess, what is that? It's about 16,000 a year, right? So if you really sort of compare his plan to be a billionaire, then that would be almost equivalent to one of us saying I'm gonna be worth $5 million or $10 million, right? Because he probably makes about 100 times more than the average person. So let me see. Let me do the quick math. Let me see. 82 million. Take off the thousands. You got 82,000 divided over 5 years. You got about a little bit more than 15,000 a year, something like that. 16,000 a year. And okay, so yeah, so he probably makes more, maybe 200 times more than most people, right? So you triple that number, that you get into 40 to 50,000 a year. So literally, him saying I want to be a billionaire is harder than you saying I want to be a millionaire, right? Assuming you make more than 20,000 a year, which most of you do, I assume. Now, his plan is interesting. He has 3 steps in his plan. The first part of his plan is he mentions hanging around the right people. They reference the book by Stephen Siebold called How Rich People Think. And in this book, Siebold actually discusses the fact that successful people generally, this is his quote, successful people generally agree that consciousness is contagious, and that exposure to people who are more successful has the potential to expand your thinking and catapult your income. We become like the people we associate with, and that's why winners are attracted to winners. And I agree with that 100%. A lot of the reason that that wealth has a hard time growing in the Black community is because we don't, as a community we still have yet to develop what I call fertile economic soil. Fertile economic soil is where the mindset and the culture of the individuals who you're partnering with, the people in your life, the people that matter. Fertile economic soil is where all of them are thinking in the same way, all of them are growing in the same way, all of them want to build the same thing. So you kind of help each other, you leapfrog off each other, you build economies around each other. And so, for example, the reason we created the All Black National Convention that we have every year, the weekend of September 27th, it's in Houston this year. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com if you're interested in taking a look at that. The reason we have the All Black National Convention is because because our goal is to bring people together. We didn't, decide to have the convention as a way to make a profit, because honestly, it's very expensive, very difficult to do. We did it because the number one way to build wealth is actually bringing people together, bringing resources together. So basically in the Black community, the biggest problem is that a lot of our energy, a lot of our resources get dispersed. For example, you might have a family where you've got 3 or 4 people that are really skilled, but every person goes off and gets a job, and they're all sort of taking their skill and their time and their energy off somewhere else. Well, you can't really build much. Not much is going to be built back at home if everybody's gone. So if all the siblings get up in the morning and leave and spend all their time and all their energy, somewhere else, then the house is not going to be well taken care of because everybody's spending their time, somewhere else. So imagine if they all stayed home, and let's say they were building a business together and putting their time and energy, heart and soul into that, then you would see something grow out of that. Or to make it an easier analogy, imagine if it were just compared to like keeping the house clean. If we're all at home and we're all cleaning all day long, then we're going to have a very clean house. But if we're all working all day, then we come home, the house, might be a mess, or maybe, everybody's going to be too tired to clean or whatever, right? So the second part of his plan, besides hanging around the right people, is making smart investments. He says, whether you're trying to build $100,000, $1 million, or $1 billion, the key to building wealth is putting your money to work. That's what Green is doing with a portion of his income. In fact, since the Warriors are in the heart of Silicon Valley in Oakland, locker room talk is often about investing. Quote, we talk about the investments that we have and how they're doing and some of the startups that we're trying to get into, he told Carter. It's known that Kevin Durant is in Postmates, so he kind of flexes his muscles on Postmates right now. It's some good, fun competition, and I think it's great to keep pushing guys in the right direction. The reason that that's a very important comment, a very important quote that Draymond just made there is because I've said this to you guys a lot in the Black Business School. Wealth building is a culture. Wealth building is a culture. There are some communities where they have, wealth building is so deeply entrenched in the culture that you can't help but to make money. You can't help but to have a business. You can't help but to build something out of what you've got, because you're encouraged to save your money. You're encouraged to invest your money. You're encouraged to pool your resources. You're encouraged to start your own business. We have sort of the opposite effect going on, where we're encouraged to give our money away. We're encouraged to tear each other down. We're encouraged to go spend our money with white folks because we want to be next to them. We feel like that's progress, right? So ultimately, what he said there about the locker room culture being one where athletes are competing with each other and encouraging each other to invest is really, really impactful and important. It's a huge amount of progress because, 20 years ago, athletes weren't doing that. 20 years ago, ball players were comparing on who had the nicest car, who spent the most money at the strip club, things like that. The third thing that Draymond mentions is he says, keep your spending in check. He says that the one expense he regrets is when he spent $21,000 on a night at the club. He says, that's $21,000 I can never get back. And people say that that's nothing to you. He said, no, $20,000 is still $20,000. I don't care how much money you have, it's still $20,000. And he says, now when it comes to spending money, he always considers his long-term goal. He said, every day, every decision I make is, how is this going to help me become a billionaire? And I just think it's great. I mean, I'm really proud of Draymond for that kind of thinking. He's 100% correct. And the thing about $21,000 is that $21,000 isn't $21,000. $21,000 is about $80,000 because your money isn't just what it is, it's what it grows into. If a person, Warren Buffett has an infamous story where he talks about how he invested $114 in 1942 and that turned into $500,000 today, right? So when you give away $1, when you throw away money, you're not just throwing away the money, you're throwing away everything the money could have become. Right? It's just like if you really have imagination, again, that's why I say people that have the most vision tend to build the most wealth because they don't just see what's there, they see what can be there. Visionaries make the world go round. So you want to train your kids to be visionaries. And so, imagine if a child dies at the age of 5, well, it's not just the end of that child's life. It's the end of the life of their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren. So you're talking about the end of a lineage right there, right? So have that vision and see what your money can become, not just what your money is. That's extremely important when it comes to wealth. So